Perfect. All right. Uh, okay, let's quickly get started. By the way, I said that I have to finish it in an hour or so. That's all right. We'll adjust this kind of delay which we had in the technology. So we'll just continue and make sure that this session is completely done for you. Who am I? My name is Raman Jain. I'm actually one of the principal cloud architect based out here in Melbourne, in Australia. I have been associated with technology since 2004, I would say. Pretty passionate Splunker. This is how I see myself. Been doing Splunking from last 8 years. Been with Splunk Melbourne for last 5 years. I've been helping a lot of customers architecting the large-scale architecture, data problems, helping them designing the complex solutions across APAC. So pretty much in APAC, if you see, there are times when you need to actually talk to people within the architect team. Myself or someone else from our team would be actually in that conversation. Natively, I'm from New Delhi, settled in Melbourne 10 years ago. I'm a proud father of two lovely kids. Those always keep me on toes these days with the COVID times. Well, with that, let's talk about what we're going to cover today in this session. So I think the ask which came up is to us is to explain that what exactly Dashboard Studio is, what is this new thing you guys are doing, what it does for the customers, how you can leverage it. So we're going to talk all things Splunk Dashboard Studio today. We'll also talk about what we have in existence before even today, and it was there before the Dashboard Studio was alive. So, which is called Simple XML. I think this is the best way how most of the customers and users know the terminology. We started to call the old style framework, which is Simple XML based, as classic, and the Dashboard Studio experience, which is the next generation experience in terms of providing the users the visual capabilities in Splunk. We'll talk about the basic. I'll actually just show you that how to create a basic dashboard, and we'll give you some examples as well. We'll also talk about some helpful tips and where you can go from here after this session. So this session is going to be a bit limited because of time. We're going to be spending 1 hour, and I would definitely keep some time for you to have a Q&A. So I would prefer to have a live Q&A. If you have any questions in between the session as well, just stop me. This is a very informal setting. I hope the visuals and the voice is clear. If there is any issue, just stop me, because I think all of you are on mute, so I won't really know. I would just keep going. If there are any issues, just stop me there.
All good.
Perfect. So what is Splunk Dashboard Studio? See, I will tell you a little background about this thing, right? I don't know from how long you have been doing Splunking, but this was a very common thing which most of our customers, users, in fact myself as well, just keep scratching their head and say, hey, you guys built an amazing product, right? You can do you can do pretty much anything from a data analytics perspective, and it does really work very well. But why is it so hard for us to make compelling dashboards? Why do we actually have to have a web developer background for us to be able to design a visual analytics? And that's exactly, I think, is one of the main reasons why we are actually introducing this thing to the world. The point is, representing the numbers in a visual story would have a very different impact on your consumers than the way how you actually just tell the numbers in form of a basic tabular outputs. You got to tell a story. Telling a story is an artistic thing. If you can actually portray what you have in your mind in a shape of a number on a canvas, that is what I say is the next generation experience you want to provide back to your consumers. And that's exactly what we're going to help you solving with the new Dashboard Studio. If you see what we have today and where we are heading, so I mean, you've been doing Splunk. I'm assuming that you all are actually using Splunk to a certain extent, right? So you've been building dashboards as well. So there are primarily two different frameworks what we have today in the product. One is called Simple XML. Now we started to call it as a classic experience or classic dashboard since we introduced this Dashboard Studio as a next generation visualization methodology or a framework. Within the classic dashboards, there is also another style of dashboarding practice we have as well that is called glass tables, which you would be aware it is part of the premium applications such as ES and ITSI. So what do they really represent? I mean, classic XML is amazing, to be honest. I mean, we still have customers those who are still kind of finding classic XML is their way to go. So we are not really saying here by introducing a new dashboard framework or by introducing a thing called Dashboard Studio, we are taking anything away from you from a classic XML perspective. You still have those dashboards, you still have those frameworks, unless in future, who knows, if we decide to actually migrate the customer from classic to Dashboard Studio. There's no plan as such. You are free to use any of them. It is your choice. So there are power in both of these frameworks, depending on your use case, depending on your level of comfort, depending on what you want to really achieve out of these dashboards. You can choose the right framework for you. So classic framework does support JS, does support CSS, does support HTML, and all different sort of web technologies what you can bring in as part of the Web 3.0 architecture. Now, think it this way: if you would really look to design things a bit more, you want to do a bit more beautification to your dashboard. The choice what you have today in a classic XML world is that you need to know CSS. For all those cosmetic changes, you would need to know CSS. What if actually you want to actually align panels? You want to change the panels, you want to change the shape and all of those things. You would need to know JS. Could be basic. It doesn't really need to be a web developer, but you need to know basic of these technologies. And then we thought, why would you need to know? This is the big question. When we brought in something to the world, why would you really need to actually know JS and CSS for creating a simple visual story? Then we introduce a new framework called as UDF. This is called Unified Dashboard Framework. So the Dashboard Studio product is actually built on top of the Unified Dashboard Framework. What does it really mean? We're trying to consolidate different things what we have built in past. One of them is, for an example, classic XML-based dashboards. The second one is absolute dashboards, which is basically given in a shape of a glass table, as you see on this slide as well. But both of them has some challenges. Both of them has some positive and some negatives. Then we thought that why should we not be able to mix them together and bring all the goodies which is required to fill up the gaps and give you one single unified experience. That is why we implemented the framework called UDF and brought in this product called Dashboard Studio in front of you. So this is what Dashboard Studio looks like. What it really tells you, it helps you creating a powerful stories across your different visualizations. I'm going to talk a little bit more in this session what visualization we covered today, what we're going to cover in future as well, and then we can talk more about if you guys have any specific requirements. We can take it back to product and we can see what we're going to do in the near future time. So the power what XML dashboard doesn't provide you, and the flexibility what you get in a glass tables, which is an absolute style layout, both of them are blended together in a fashion that you now have a capability with Dashboard Studio to be able to create powerful analytics by leveraging either of these two type of layouts. We have two different layouts. One we call it as absolute, another we call it as grid. We're going to talk a little bit more about it as well. So either by using any of them, you can actually build the story the way you want to present. There is no need for you to do custom coding. That's the beauty. You don't need to know JS, you don't need to know CSS. A lot of that can be done just by dragging and dropping and manipulating some of the configurations on the dashboard itself. Here's a quick and important slide. So I think some of you would have used the Dashboard Beta app. That was the first cut. We actually made it available to everyone to be used as an app. So what we have done, starting from 8.1.21 in cloud, and starting from 8.2 on-prem or Splunk Enterprise, now Dashboard Beta app has been already embedded into the product itself. So there is no need for you to deploy a separate beta app to get the same experience. Now what we have done, and this is important as well, we have deprecated the Dashboard Beta app. So we no longer support Dashboard Beta app. The reason is obvious, as we have brought in the app within the product itself. So we recommend customers to use these new version of the products. So you get the experience inbuilt within the product itself. You have a choice where you can actually go and create a new dashboard, just like you do the classic dashboard, or you have a choice when you're running a search, you can save a specific search output into a dashboard as well. And when you're saving the dashboard output into when you're saving the search results or search into a dashboard, you would be given a choice to choose between either Classic or Dashboard Studio based experience. As you can see on this GIF, that what is happening is kind of giving you a bit of a layout as well, that how it flows from one step to another. I'll try to show you actually in this session a demo of that, exactly how it looks and how you can do it. Let's talk about some of the similarities, and then let's also talk about some of the differences as well in between both of these two frameworks, Classic versus Studio. Pretty much what you can do today, in most cases, in Classic experience, you can do the same thing in Studio as well, such as they both out of the box support both out of the box support the time filter or time selector, which means you can have a time filter to select and pass that time variables into your searches. Basic charts, basic line charts are included in both, such as line, table, pie, scatter, choropleth, and a single value, and gauge, and some more as well. So most of these graphs, most of these charts are actually included within both of them. They both follow the same permissions, structure, and controls as what you see today in Classics. So you have to make sure the same sort of permissions are applied on Dashboard Studio as well as the way how you are intending to define on Classic experience as well. See, I'm actually interchangeably using this word Classic experience. I shouldn't be actually, because we in cloud do have this as a formal term between a specific version to another version, where we say Classic experience versus Victoria experience. So if any one of you have heard about that, do not get confused. In this context of the session, when I'm saying Classic experience, that is exactly that is actually meaning XML type dashboards. Both of them supports inputs, global inputs. As I said, time ranger is actually by default given on the dashboard when you first create the dashboard. Other than that, you have different choices such as drop down. You have a text input. You actually have number. I think we have multi-select input as well. So pretty much most of the common inputs are given and supported in both of them. From a GUI perspective, you get both the views. You can edit the code right from the GUI itself, or you actually can drag and drop, just like the Classic XML experience as well. So pretty much most of these basic functionalities are very common in both the experiences. You can try and you wouldn't really see a lot of difference in them, but there are some very specific differences in both the type of framework, which I want to just kind of call out here. In case of Classic, which is known as XML Dashboard, as the name itself actually tells you, this is the native code behind that dashboard. Everything what you write is in an XML format. Whereas the difference between Studio is what you write is actually in a JSON structure. So this is a massive difference in terms of the code, the UI code. It doesn't really mean that the technology which we have used behind the scene is JSON. JSON is just actually data structure what we use, but behind the scene we have a different framework altogether than XML. In case of XML, you typically know the layout of the XML to be defined in a form of a row and columns, right? Within rows, you have panels that defines your columnar output. You kind of manipulate your number of rows, number of panels. But if you really have to actually resize them outside the default given options, then you use JS, and maybe sometimes you actually bake that thing into the dashboard itself by leveraging CSS and some other styles, right? So we don't do that thing in case of Dashboard Studio, and it is obvious why we don't do it, because that is the whole point. We wanna give you a simple, flexible structure through which you don't really have to worry about creating CSS or knowing about CSS, what CSS design you need to apply, how you should use JS. That is the whole point of doing it. So this is the obvious difference why we have it. From a layout perspective, the Studio supports two different layouts. One is called Grid, another is called Absolute. I'm going to talk a little bit more about both the layouts and the differences in the next few slides. In case of Classic, you can do the PDF export, but the problem is when you take the PDF export of the dashboard, you pretty much get we split it based on the panels or individual charts. So you lose that pixel perfect picture. It's kind of very distracted as well, right? But in case of Studio, it is intact. The PDFs are actually pretty good. It is not exportable though, so it's not schedulable though. But what we are doing actually, in case of Classic, you can actually schedule a dashboard to be sent as a PDF, right? But Dashboard Studio doesn't do it today, and I can't say, but we're working on it, and it's gonna come soon. Support for third-party custom visualizations. At this stage, we are trying to actually stay away from custom visuals as far as possible, because what I've felt that typically what you can do from custom visuals, more or less you can do the similar thing by using SVGs. That is the current way of doing it, but it doesn't mean we are not looking to incorporate some of the most required custom visuals into Dashboard Studio. And every single release what we're going to do in future, you would see something is coming in, and based on the requirement, based on the demand, how our customers want us to have it in the product. From a drill down perspective, XML framework does support advanced drill downs, such as you can set tokens based on an execution of a search. Whereas in case of Dashboard Studio, we do support the drill downs, but they are basic drill downs, such as you define the inputs define your tokens. In future, in the very next release, you would see this is actually getting very close to where we are today with Classic. So what we're doing basically, eventually the direction for the product is, we want to bring in the parity between some of these goodies, some of these good features. Those are required by the customer, and it's really important for them to have it. Well, with that, I'll take a pause here and see if any one of you has any questions so far. All right. Silence can tell you two different things. I'll take the positive one. Getting started. Okay. Let's talk about what we can do and how you can get started with it. Let me give you a bit of a basic understanding of the concepts, and then I'll just say take you into the product and show you the exactly how it works. All right. So what you can do today, let me see if I can just show you, and we do the demo right from there. All right. I'm going to share a different screen. Can you see my Splunk screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. See, I'm just gonna, because I've just skipped few slides here, I thought maybe it's good if I'll just take you through the product itself, and then maybe we talk about some of those things. Those are covered in the slides. But before we jump on, I'm gonna ask again, if there are any questions about what we have discussed, feel free to ask the questions. I mean, this is the whole purpose of the user groups. It's very informal setting. You can ask me anything. So I'll take another 20-second break and see if there are any questions coming up. Let me ask you a few things here. I mean, in your experience, what is your visual experience? I mean, how you are seeing these dashboards, how you are seeing this feature going ahead for us and for you as well. If any one of you want to just share your experience, if you're dealing with your customers, if you're not a customer, and if you are actually serving a customer as a consultant or as a partner, so what do you hear from those customers, and how you see that actually you were spending time in building some of the advanced visualizations? All right, seems like we have a very quiet audience. Let's then jump onto the to the demonstration here and see what we can do with the product, right? So as I said, by the way, this is my screen too big for you? Shall I zoom in or what? Is it okay?
Zoom in would be really handy.
All right.
You could, yeah. That's better.
Is it good?
Yeah, excellent, sir.
Yeah, better.
Perfect. If you see here, this is the app which I was talking about, the Dashboard Beta app. If you install it, it will still, I mean, it's still actually the app which is available today, right? We're not saying you can't use it, but there's no point because we're making the upgrades, we're making the changes into the new Dashboard Studio itself, which is embedded into the product. But for some reason, if you're not actually on a version 8.1.2.103 or 8.1.8.2, then you would have no choice other than using this app if you want to use it. But you run into the risk of actually seeing this app to be unsupported because we no longer support this app. So the same experience is very well embedded into the search and reporting app itself. So what does it mean for you if you are designing the apps? Let me just talk a little bit around it because that is the most common theme which I've been hearing around around this topic. What if I have to design an app? I'm building my app and building my dashboards into the Dashboard Studio framework. So if I would, how would I actually package it? Would it be any different than the way how I do it today with classic XMLs? The answer is no. It would be more or less the same from a structure perspective. The only difference what you would see is as obvious. The XML won't, I mean, the code won't be in XML, the code would be in JSON. And I'll talk a little bit more about it, that way how we are storing the elements and objects on the dashboard, which would make their way into the KV store. So you can package the app the same way you deploy it, but there is only one thing you have to make sure: wherever this app is getting deployed, that platform needs to be at par with the required version. Else you have to just make sure that you put that as a dependency, that there is a dependency of the version to be on 8.2 or blah, 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 or else you would run that app actually into, sorry, otherwise your app dashboards won't render on the platform. So let's say now you are actually in the app, it's on the platform itself, and you want to get an experience of Dashboard Studio. You click on Dashboard just like what you do today. Now you would see that we have given you, we've kind of given you a pretty good short link here, hyperlinks here, through which you can get into the Dashboard Studio view. And I'll tell you one thing here: in past, what we have done, we built apps for explaining apps, like Dashboard Example app. You use Dashboard Example app to know about what else can you really do smartly with the visualizations. So what we have done, we're kind of going away from it. Pretty much everything what you need for you to learn about the app and the dashboards and visualization it's been baked into the app itself. So we have created an example hub through which we are explaining exactly how Dashboard Studio works. On the top of it, you do have documentations as well. You can always go on Docs and check the detailed information of a specific topic. On the top of that, there is an education course which will be coming up very soon as well on Dashboard Studio. In the meantime, you can leverage your local Splunk community as this group itself, or you can actually reach out to one of your local SE. Anant is here, Anant and team, or you can reach out to myself or someone else as well. We are here to help. There are a bunch of YouTube videos. Those are available on Dashboard Studio on a specific topics, visualizations as well, if you want to start from there. I'm just talking about all of these things because I see user group is a way for us to kind of pass on the information so you can get started. So we won't be able to really cover all of these things, but at least you know where you can start from here. It's a pretty good boot start, and then you can drive it in your own way. So let's say if I would be designing anything first time in new Dashboard Studio, what I would be doing, I would come to this page and I would really actually try to understand what this thing is through an example. So I'll click here, and this thing will take you to our example hub page, which is baked into the product itself. So now you would see that what different kind of visualization we actually support. And we have also given you pre-built dashboards, very good dashboards in terms of articulating every single aspect of the Dashboard Studio product. So you can see all of this thing actually is kind of really coming up very well. So let's have a look into what do we support from a visualization perspective. We do support the single value elements as you see here. Now, I'm gonna first talk about what we support within the Dashboard Studio, and then we'll just jump onto some of them as well, and then I'll take you through the layout. I'll put it this way. I'll take you through a journey of creating your first dashboard. As you see, we pretty much support most of them, which you really more or less need it. There are times when you need custom visualizations, such as maybe you want to use the parallel coordinates, you want to use Sankey or something else. So we are working on it. And by the way, I'm actually showing you I'm showing you the instance where we do have development work, which is in progress. So I would say that this is all kind of actually forward-looking thing. So we don't know whether it's going to come, it's not going to come. We're just doing experiments. So take it this way. What I'm saying in the next few minutes is just all live. We have single value elements, chart elements you can support. You can do bubble charts, pie charts, punch cards, scatter charts. All of this is currently supported. You can use choropleth. This is currently supported. We have tables as well, gauges, and all different sort of inputs, which I spoke about when I was taking you through the slides. And then you can do drill downs as well. Now, let me talk about how you plug in your searches within the dashboards. How you plug in your searches within the dashboards, right? All right. Let's jump into the layout of the dashboard, and then I'll talk about all of these. So rather than going through them, let me explain you exactly how it works. Let's say if you want to really know that how does a single specific element works or a single chart works, click on any one of them. And we have given you the example page where we have explained you exactly what sort of code definition will it articulate and different options, themes that how you can use the same visualization. So this is just an example page, right? You know about it. So you can easily come here. You can see, you can try different options. You can copy paste the code from here. You can take this code and put it into your dashboard, and it will bubble up the same results, right? As far as the data sources are mapped correctly. Now, instead of this, let's go and do some stuff here. Let's start your first experience of building the dashboard. I'm here back on my home screen. I'm gonna click on this thing called Create New Dashboard. Now this is where you're gonna get two different options, Classic or Dashboard Studio. Classic, as you know, is the XML, what you have been doing from years. Now let's start the first one here, 001 Pune. And for this one, I'm gonna create Absolute and Grid. Now, I didn't mention about what is Absolute and what is Grid. Let me just quickly show you the key difference. And then we'll jump into the visualization that exactly what it does. So, all right. So as I said, that we do support two different kind of layouts today within the Dashboard Studio. One is called Absolute, another one is called Grid. Absolute, as the name says, I say it this way, that this kind of layout really makes you as an artist. Imagine if you would give you a canvas and we will give you the tools to actually really articulate your mind onto a plain canvas, and you being an artist, it is completely your choice whether you make it ugly or you make it beautiful. This is how I see it. This is the level of flexibility you get on Absolute. It's a picture pixel perfect. You get an ability to actually drag and drop things. You get an ability to actually size and dice them according to what you need. And you have an ability here to import images and size them and actually do all sort of fancy things what typically people do in a web designing, right? You can create a really appealing visual executive dashboards on Absolute. So what is the difference in Grid? Well, fundamentally, they both are actually based on Dashboard Studio. They're using the same framework. But what we have done, as in case of Absolute, as you know, it is an open canvas. So you probably would need a little bit more time in designing things just for a reason, because they don't really have a fixed coordinates. Sometimes aligning things is actually kind of, hey, this is a little bit out. So those are like cosmetic changes, which takes time. But what if actually I still want to get a pretty good dashboard, looks appealing and has all the good feature of Dashboard Studio, but I don't want to really deal with this alignment, right? Positioning. So you can use in this case called Grid. It's very quick, very neat, and gives you all that flexibility of having custom different sizing for your panels. I'm using the word panels intentionally here, because that is a very common use case in case of classic XML, where people you have to say, hey, I'm not happy with this classic panel layout, and I'm going to use JS to just size it and dice it according to different methods. That all of that is gone away with grid layout. It would give you pretty neat dashboard from a visualization perspective, because all of that is somehow laid out in a complete positional manner, right? I'll show you that as well. One thing which you need to know, in case of grid layout, we don't support some of the feature, I won't say features, some of these visual objects, such as icons, images, and background images, shapes, and text boxes. And there's a reason for it, because then basically we don't really actually do it this way, but we have released, or we're going to release a feature called Markdown. Markdown will help you actually having all of these things defined as an HTML element. So it will basically give you a bit more flexibility for you to have actually, or embed some HTML content within your dashboard. Now with that, let's get into the dashboard building experience and see how it goes for you. So we're going to build first one as absolute. I'll click Dashboard Studio and I choose absolute, and then I just say create. It's really very easy. I've seen actually, in fact, myself, when I first started doing it, I felt like it is a lot to learn. It is very different. I have to learn a lot, but trust me, with the new experience, what we have now embedded into the product itself, which I'm showing you right now, it is much, much better. It is much more user intuitive. You can really do things very smartly and actually efficiently. See, I am going to create a simple scenario. What I'm really doing here is I want to show you three typical visuals. The first one I want to show you is a single value. The second one, which I want to show you, is a tabular output. The third one, which I want to show you, maybe a bar chart or some sort of a pie chart or something, right? Let's do that. So what we would do, first thing what you can do, as I said, this is a canvas. Pretty much on this canvas, you can actually drag, drop things the way you want it. If you're not happy with the canvas width and height, you can change it here. So broadly, let's understand the structure of this dashboard first. This, if we click here, it will take you into the source code of the dashboard. As you see, the source code of the dashboard is JSON. I'm going to squeeze everything down so I can explain you what these things are, what are these independent layouts and options. All right. If you see broadly, you would have 5 different elements into your main dashboard code or JSON. What does this thing represent? Visualization. Visualization is a placeholder where you create your charts, where you create your visuals. So if you're adding a chart, that would have to be mapped here within this tangent. What is data sources? So now what we have done in case of XMLs, you were pretty much defining the searches within the panels itself, or you were using the concept of post-processing and child processes, right? But now what we have done, we have created a placeholder for your searches, and that is data sources. So every single search which you are using or you're going to be using in the dashboard will be defined and given a unique ID. Let's say, for example, DS1, DS2, DS3. So you can reference them, and it gives them the power. It gives you the power for you not to be actually copy pasting the same thing again and again, right? So the third thing what it does, it has the section called defaults. This is where we define the inputs. Inputs, as you know, they are the filters or different options like drop down, which you define on the top of a dashboard to provide the intuitive and interactivity in the dashboard itself. Layout defines the kind of layout you're using, absolute or grid. And it does also have a section called global inputs, things like time range, things like I want to apply a common color theme to the whole dashboard, things like I want to actually size things in the same way. So those things become part of your global input because they're globally applied to the dashboards, right? I'm explaining you because some of you are interested in knowing about maybe how I'm going to do it through programmatically. Then this is probably important for you to know where things goes, right? But broadly, I've seen that the easiest way for you to actually really get started is to start from UI, kind of get used to it, and then go into the source code. It makes it easy. So let's say I said we're going to start with a single value. So first thing what we really need to do here is create your data sources, because we need to know from where we're going to pull the data. Now there are two choices here. Either you can predefine your data sources, or you can actually define the chart and then associate the data source with it. Reason why I'm saying predefine your data source, I'll tell you something. There are times when customers are saying, hey, I don't want to really, I'm a power user. I don't really understand how my consumer want to really see this data. But my consumer doesn't really know how to write searches. Because my consumer or my user, my customer, he or she, they are not really Splunk savvy. They don't know exactly how to write the searches because they're not really data people. But they do know the business objective behind this data. This is the flexibility now you get with the Dashboard Studio. Imagine if you as a power user is writing 10 different data sources for them and just putting and punching in the dashboard and then passing it on to the business user who has the ability to being creative about the dashboards and visualizations, then you can kind of make it actually pretty interactive work. This is the feature, this is the power you can get from the Dashboard Studio. So now let's say, for example, I'm going to define a data source. There are two different kind of data searches you can actually think here broadly. One being the inline search, like as you define as an independent search, or the second being actually your saved searches, right? So you can reference any of the saved search which is actually mapped into the app. So you have to make sure the permissions are right. The third or a connected search, which I would say is the child search or the chain search. If you know the concept of post searches in Dashboard, where you can define a master search or a base search, and then you can use the post searches to leverage the output of the same search. The same concept is actually available today in Dashboard Studio as well. And in fact, I think this is one of the best things which I love about this framework. And I'll show you why. If you would have created post searches, tell me how hard it is for you to really do this thing if you have a bunch of base searches and chain searches in XML. You have to deal with the code. You have to get into code. You define your base search stanza, then you keep replicating the name of the base search in every single time when you're using the chain search. Now see what we can do here. Let's say I'm going to define a master search here. I'm going to call it as master search 1. And let's say business objective 1, whatever, right? I am going to use just something what we have, or I'll just actually use. What are we doing? We're creating a single one. Okay. Let's make it as a complete one, like a base search, and we'll use it actually across the visuals. That's basic search, right? Just I want to just pull some data out. That's it. What do you want to take? You want to take the input from the global time range? Yes, we'll take the global one, and then we save it. And then what we're gonna do here, let's imagine if you wanna now use the chain search, right? You don't really have to worry about your visuals. We can deal into visuals later, but that wasn't the flexibility you have today in XML. That's not the way. You have to define visuals, then you get into the searches, right? See, click on this thing called chain search. Now you say you wanna take this chain search from a master search 1. Let's say chain search 1. Now you can select it here. This is the beauty. And this is not available in Dashboard Studio app as well. This is the only thing which actually now been, as and how we are evolving the product, we are making things better, right? So this is available today in the Dashboard Studio, which is part of the product itself. So you get all the list of your master searches or base searches here, so you can easily select it. This makes it much more easier for you to write and create dashboards, right? And it will show you the search as well here. Sometimes you need to know exactly what is there in the search. So we'll show you and we'll log the field so you can't change it. And then after, let's say I'm saying, hey, just show me the stats count. I'm only interested in fields count here, right? And then you just save it, right? Now what we do, let's imagine we have the data sources done, all done and dusted. Now this is time to create the visualization. A guy came and said, hey, I don't like this plain background. What can I do about it, right? You click here. By the way, I will tell you something. You might find through this experience, sometimes things are a little flaky. It's just because the UI experience, sometimes we have a little bugs which we are trying to fix. A lot of them has been fixed. It is much stable product now, much better product. But if you see any such issues, make sure that you send us an email or document. There's a page which we have provided and the information we provided through which you can document those bugs or let us know. We can look into them. And I mentioned this intentionally today because if some of you have been using the old Dashboard Beta app, then you might have discovered those bugs, but they are all kind of gone away. Pretty much this has evolved significantly in last 6 months. All right, so what we're gonna do here, visual. Let's add the single value visual. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use the single value visual here. Now, when you added a single value visual, right? See, first of all, this is the flexibility what you have. You can do anything what you like, right? That is what I was telling you. And this is, by the way, this flexibility is available in Grid as well, because this is pretty fixed design structure. But what you don't really have in Grid is the option like move, drag, and drop like this. This is absolute. That is the difference between, key difference between absolute and Grid, right? Now, let's say I want to define a single value here. Now, see, the moment you did that, it will ask you to use a visualization type, which is fine. Let's say you want to don't give a name. Now, this is the time where you will associate a data source here. We click on a setup primary, and then you can choose either this one or this one, whichever you like. In our case, because I remember, if you remember, I actually intentionally selected a fields count. That is what I really need for a single value. I would use the CS1 search, and I would let it actually populate my data. Can you see it? So the data is populated here. Now, one thing which I also want to call out, which is pretty good and efficient feature, within these individual visualizations, you can have their own specific local refresh time. Imagine if you are building a dashboard, and sometimes you really have to refresh only a specific type of data, but you didn't really have that option, and you end up refreshing the whole dashboard. What it did, it actually created more search workload for the system, which wasn't really required. Now you are getting that flexibility. So you can actually have the local refresh time, or you can have the global refresh time as well, right? So coming back on the visuals, visual part. Now see, imagine any of this thing what we are doing here to do this thing on XML. You are basically dealing a lot of this within the code itself, within the XML itself. But here you get the flexibility of defining the conditional formatting through UI itself. And this is pretty good, which I'm showing you right now. And I'll show you this one. Just after this, I'll take you into the tabular view, and I'll show you that how this is drastically different, significantly different in case of Tabular in Dashboard Studio versus the XML. So let's say I'm not interested in that. I want to change my layout to this one. You can change it right from here. You can choose different sort of a segmentation based on the thresholds you define. So you can either use the coloring option of sequential or divergent or categorical. You can also have custom thresholds as well. So I think I don't really have to explain this screen to you. It's pretty, I think you know this thing. But what I'm trying to really say here is this will give you the power of doing all of this thing in UI itself and make it much easy for you to actually consume the overall goodness of the Dashboard Studio. What you can do here, let's say if you want to actually upload an image, I mentioned about that I'm not happy with this image, right? Typically what I do here, right, you can either drag and drop an image here, or I mean, just for this demo purpose, I'm gonna just go to a URL. I'm just gonna just will get this picture for an example. Say copy image address. Where were we, by the way? All right, I'll go here and I put the URL here. Right, see, the image is there for you to do any magic what you want to do. You can now drag and drop and say, hey, by the way, this number looks good, but I just want to put it actually here instead of this, right? I'll go here, put this thing here, and I say, show me the background of this image. And I would go here and say transparent. See now? And I want to change the color of this number as well. What is it, value 292? You can use any kind of color HTML code here, right? You can use any of the HTML code, it will work. So you know what I mean. This is pretty much how people kind of really create intuitive and visually appealing dashboards, right? I'll just show you an example. So when you see, when we are showing you such pretty dashboards, the reality is that half of the time that beautification is done via these background images, right? So I think you got the idea what you can do. This is the markup feature which I was talking about. So you can have the markup feature in grid layout as well. I think with the, so let me show you tabular one. And then, so this is done. All right, so this is, now you know how to do it. I'm gonna just make it big for a second, leave it here. Now let's see, what if I wanna now create a tabular output, right? And by the way, what about the inputs? We'll come on to inputs after this very quickly. Let's do the tabular one, and then we can just keep on going with the flow with the rest of the features. Okay, now what I want to do here, I want to get a tabular output, and this is what it is. I want to attach my master search instead of chain search this time, because that would give me the tabular output, what I'm really after. See, now my tabular output is here. What I really want to show you here is something like this. Okay. Let's say you've created this table. A lot of the times, the common use cases, what we have been seeing in case of tables are is related with the conditional formatting. Today, you can do conditional formatting in tabular output based on the heat map options, high and low. What if I want to have a very custom, very different rules, like Excel? Like when you go in an Excel, you define a conditional formatting on individual columns and their values. That is what you can do today. Imagine you wanna you come here, you say column formatting. You define which column you wanna choose. If you choose, and we define the data type as well. If the column type is count, this is where you get the maximum formatting option. Now you added the rule here. Sorry, you added the entry for defining the rule here. Then you click edit, and this is where you define your rules, right? Say, hey, what I want to see count is, I want to just basically say this is just a number, right? The precision is up to a value. I want to just actually use the separators. Now, what I want to really do here is actually define the background based on the values within this column itself. But what if actually I don't want to just define the values? I want to take a kind of a heat map. Then you have these options of going categorical or divergent, or you can define the native threshold values as well. You can choose different color schemes, dark and light, what you like. If you don't like it, you can define your own custom colors as well, right? So you get all of that HTML flexibility in the UI itself. See, so this is now applied to this column. If you want to add something different to different columns, you can apply it here. So you get all of this flexibility in terms of defining and customizing your visuals. The other one which I want to talk, I think it's enough of visuals today. So basically, you know how you can drag and drop and build things easy. You know how to attach the search, how you can leverage the same search multiple times if you want to. So that part is good. What if I want to actually add some icons here, right? You click here and then you choose which icon you want to add. And then now the good part of this is, which I want to show you quickly. I'll just remove it for a second. If I'm adding an icon, let's say cloud, you can actually, hang on, what's the issue? All right, I'm not sure what's the issue here, but you should be able to actually define, you drag and drop your icon here. And the moment when you drag and drop your icon would be treated, the color scheme of icon would be treated by the outcome of a search. So when you drop the icon here, you would see the same right-hand side where you would see the option for you to attach a data search. And you can do the same method the way how I attach it today with the different visuals. And then you can choose when do I want to see the color of this icon changing green or red. So all of those options will be coming, would come along with the data source output as well. I think there might be some issue with the KV store behind the scene, because all of these things get stored into a KV store. So you should be able to drag and drop. This is a development system. All right, so what else? Inputs, quickly. So as I said, there are three specific input side which we support today: drop down, multi-select, text, number, and time range. And I think they are pretty obvious what you can do, but just let me show you one of them. When you define drop down, so this is where you get the options, just like in a similar fashion, I guess, the way you have today in XML. But yeah, not a lot different. But the only difference which you see here is you can actually now obviously define the data source through UI and then attach it. I think they are pretty similar. Not really a lot of different compared to XMLs, but yeah, you have them and you can use them in the dashboards. What else would be useful for you before we give you time to ask questions? Well, these things are obvious. You can draw any shape if you want to draw, and then you can color these shapes based on primary data source as well. So if you want to just put a box here and say this box should turn into, maybe I think the best way to explain this is, let's say you actually have got a cylinder or an eclipse, and you want to say, hey, this should only be filled fully with the color called green once I would have 100% achievement. Otherwise, it will just behave like it's a gold gauge. And then in that case, what you do, you pretty much actually shape it the way you want, and then set the data source here and define the percentage based on the output of the data source, and the color would change. I think what I'm trying to tell you with this example is you can be creative. Sometimes there are no visualizations, but you feel that sometimes you feel you need a visualization which is not available, but trying to see how you can be creative about using some of these existing features itself to create this similar output. Like in this case, what I was really trying to say, I don't really have a cylinder here, but I think with some combination of shapes, we can work it out. And ultimately what my purpose was, I want to show the depth of the cylinder to be filled based on the output of a search result. So you can achieve that. Or you can use SVGs. As I said, SVGs will give you the maximum flexibility if you want to. Let me see if we are pretty much there in terms of coverage of what we wanted to. Let's do a quick check on things that we have pretty much covered most of things what we wanted to cover today before I take you into the grid layout. So you understand now the similarities, you understand the differences, you understand what you have in terms of the help available to you today, where you can go. You know about Example Hub. I've showed you that this is the way you can choose different examples for you to get started. So you know about the layout as well now, how we differentiate in terms of the JSON structure versus the XML, what are the key components. You know about absolute and grid now. Okay, here's a pretty good example of absolute, right? As I said, I'll show you that in live. Let's talk about the migration though. I think we haven't spoken about migration. We've spoken about text, images, and SVGs that we can fill the color based on the search output. Okay, this is something which I just wanted to show you very quickly. This is a dashboard which is built in XML. You have an option today to convert the classic XML dashboard into the Dashboard Studio. But keep in mind, sometimes that experience could be flaky just because some of those visuals are not working. We don't have them in Studio, or sometimes you need to do a bit of an alignment as well, right? But I'll tell you, someone actually just was showing me this dashboard, which they took it from the app called Netmo. And this was done in classic XML, right? There's nothing wrong at all. So we're not saying here you shouldn't be using classic XML. Your choice. You decide what is right for you. We're giving you the options when you need to, right? So what actually happened, the same dashboard, then we converted into the Studio dashboard. You would probably argue here that, hey, what really has changed here? Nothing in terms of numbers. Yeah, obviously, we haven't changed anything. But what we're trying to show you here is the difference. You can see how crisp and sharp this image is, or this dashboard is. On the top of that, you have all the flexibility of doing it. But that is really not the point. The point here is when someone would have done this thing, right? In creating this image and this point, if he is not aware of it, how long would that guy would have taken, right? If you know this thing, this is 2 minutes thing. If I know how to do it, maybe 2 minutes thing. But if I don't know about it, I'm going to go and research. I'm going to go and find how I'm going to put an HTML element. Then I'm going to go and find how do I actually embed an image into an HTML. And then I'm going to find out how I'm going to use JS to create different layout, like panel width, right? See how much is involved. That is the point which I'm trying to make here. On the top of the pixel perfect and sharpness, you don't really have to worry about those things. All right, with this, I think we are pretty much on the time, but I am here. I'm definitely happy to just open up the forum now and see if you want to know more, if you want me to cover some specific topic or point, or if you have any questions. I'll show you in the meantime. If you have questions, fine. I'll show you the grid example as well. So we're pretty much covering then everything. Let's say all right, as I said, in case of grid, you would see less number of options here. Like you don't see icon, you won't see images. Those things are not there, but you have markup. You can use markup to do similar sort of things. Now you see here, let's say broadly the functions won't, the functionality in terms of the way how the layout operates won't change. You will still have the same data sources. You can create the same data sources the way how I explained you in Absolute. And what you would do here, you create a graph. Let's say, for example, I'm going to create a simple time chart. And I'm just saying for this, my search is this is called inline search. This is the way how you define the inline of the searches. So inline within the visuals. The other one which I showed you before was the data structure. Within the data sources, you go and define your searches. And so see, this is what now what I'm going to do. I'm just going to copy paste this. So we just basically don't have to waste time in building the visuals, but I want to just basically show you something here in terms of layout. See now, can you see that this is kind of actually fit to the width and fit to the height of the panels, to the row. This is how the grid layout would work. You don't really have an option of actually dragging, dropping in a random shape. So you would have to fit things back into the given grids. So imagine actually your whole your canvas is actually now divided and split it into multiple grids. So you only have a choice to choose either one of that grid, or you have a choice to use a combination of those grids. And the grids are generally basically rectangle or a square shape. Now what I'm going to do here, let's say if I have a need to actually put an image, because you don't really, when I said we don't allow it, but you still want to create some of them, you use markup. When you use markup here, you see all of these options where you can actually put images and things, right? Let's say, for example, I'm going to put same one. This is something which you are seeing, not many people have seen yet. This is new one. We haven't, I think, we haven't released yet, or it's going to come up, whatever. But you know how to use it, right? So you know what it is. So this is the way you do it. We're making the provisions, but through different methods. All right. I'll stop it here. Tell me if there is anything or if there are questions you want to ask. You can take yourself off mute and you can have a conversation.
It's really good, Rahman.
Thanks, Salim.
Which version of Splunk where Studio is supported?
8.1.2103 on cloud and enterprise 8.2 onwards. Are you still seeing my screen?
No.
Okay, then I'll just read it out for you. Just to be super sure. We're releasing very fast. Yes, that's true. 8.2 in enterprise and 8.1.2103 in case of cloud. Most likely your cloud, if you're on Splunk cloud, most likely it will be there because we are on 8.2.2 something, right? So you most likely will be having it on cloud for sure. but for enterprise, it will be 8.2 plus, 8.2 or plus.
Thank you.
But what's your feel? What's your think about? I mean, what's your take on it? I mean, are you finding this feature to be useful? You're gonna be using it actually, or what's your feel on it?
Yeah, this seems to be more flexible as compared to XML. Yeah.
Yeah, true. It is. All right. Any more questions? Anything else you want to know on this topic? Perfect. Okay, back to you, Rohit. If you need anything, I think I am done.
Thank you, sir.
No worries. Okay. Good luck, everyone. Thanks for your time, and thanks for giving me this opportunity to present some of these good things to the community of Pune.
Fantastic. Fantastic.
Bye bye.
Bye. Thanks.
Thank you very much.